What do you call two octopuses that look exactly the same? Identical. Why did the octopus beat the shark in a fight? Because the octopus was well armed. How do you make an octopus laugh? You give it 10 tickles. Yes, I know, my octopus jokes are incredible. But in all seriousness, today we have an octopus, if you couldn't already tell. And a lot of people are scared by cooking octopus, but I know so many people that love it and jump on it right away when you're offered it in a restaurant. So why is there that disconnect? Well, it's not actually that scary after all. It may look like a pretty weird creature, and I'm always surprised by how many people actually haven't seen a full octopus in real life. But that's why I got one for you today. Not only am I gonna show you how to make the most tender, delicious octopus, but we're also gonna make sushi out of it. Specifically nigiri, because I really wanna be able to lay those octopus pieces over the top of the rice and look at how beautiful they are. On top of that, we also have something even more special than an octopus, which are actually fairly difficult to get, by the way. We have fresh wasabi. Now, if you didn't know, most of the time when you go into a sushi restaurant, you're actually not having wasabi. You know that green stuff that you get every single time that's in a little clump and your friends always dare you to eat a big piece of it? That's not wasabi. They call it wasabi, but it's green colored horseradish. And when you think about it, it makes sense, right? It does the exact same thing that horseradish does to your nose and your palate. Really kind of gets things flowing in there. But if you didn't know this, you've been tricked all these years. Just like ginger, wasabi's a root, and I'm gonna shave that whole root and show you how that works. It's actually super cool. But to start, let's drag in this octopus. This right here is an entire octopus that weighs about 8 pounds. You can see he's a real gorgeous looking fellow with his head right here, his eyes right here, and each of his 8 tentacles. All of which still somehow have that suction-y capability and are sticking to my cutting board. And take a close look at those tentacles and how beautiful they all are. The octopus truly is a gorgeous animal. Now, if I flip him over, take a look right here in the middle and you'll see his beak. This is yet another part of the octopus that most people didn't really know existed. But just like a bird, it's got a nice beak right here. Believe it or not, just like popping a pimple, one of the first things we have to do is take this beak out. Because nobody's trying to bite down on that when you go to eat a nice soft piece of sushi. That's about as much of a beak as you're ever gonna get. Super interesting to see a sea creature with something like this. Believe it or not, octopus are extremely smart animals. Randomly, they also have 3 hearts. But when it comes to their intelligence, in addition to having neurons in their head, they have them in their tentacles. And this means something really cool. While these tentacles are over working on how to pry open some sort of other shellfish to eat, the octopus can be looking the completely different direction, perhaps trying to figure out where to get more food, or look for a good hiding spot to go eat. So this basically means that its tentacles can sort of think for themselves outside of what its brain's doing. To actually go ahead and cook an octopus, people use all sorts of different methods to try to make it nice and tender. Some people will actually just bash it like that and try to tenderize it. But I'm gonna show you a different method that I've used several times to make the most tender octopus I've ever experienced. So let's get ready to cook this guy up. To start cooking our octopus, the first thing we're gonna do is put in a bunch of red wine. Now, this doesn't have to be an expensive red wine at all. It's more just kind of for the flavor and the acidity that's gonna break it down a little bit. Actually, give me a second here. We're not filming, right? No. All right. So to start, I'm gonna pour in a bunch of my red wine right into our beautiful glass pot. Again, this is a great way to use up some red wine if you just have a bunch left over. I don't know, if you were having a party or something. But no guys, I actually do party. I mean, that's why I have this wine. So I do actually I party. The next thing we're gonna do here is add in a bunch of water to sort of top off the rest of the pot. Yet another acidic ingredient now, we're gonna go in with a few slices of lemon. You can also use limes, oranges, whatever you want here. What I have here is some beautiful pickled ginger, which I'm also gonna toss in there for some flavor and acidity, as well as an ingredient that obviously goes along really well with sushi. So in we go with our ginger. Now we bring this to a boil. Now before I drop it in the pot, I got this gorgeous octopus from Regalis Foods. I'll drop their link down in the description below. I know at this point you know how many amazing, crazy ingredients I try to source, and they literally have everything. Just in general, I want to thank them for always helping me source those crazy things. Now to cook an octopus, you want to slowly temper it in and out of your boiling water before actually dropping it in fully. Now this thing's giving me quite the workout on my right arm here. But what I'm gonna do is slowly drop it in, and then just a few seconds later, pull it out. Now watch a close eye on the bottom of the tentacles here, as they're gonna start to curl up. Again, we're gonna drop this all the way in, almost to the end, and then pull it out. Like I said, we're tempering this, bringing it up to temperature. We don't wanna suddenly shock this octopus into this boiling hot water, right? So this is our way of slowly introducing him to that new water that he's gonna be cooked in. I like to do this dipping process several times until it's really quite curled up. And once that happens, you can drop it all the way in, and then we're gonna let this cook on low for about an hour. We'll see you in a little bit, Octo Buddy. Once our octopus has been cooking for well over an hour, you can see that a lot of that outer skin has peeled off, and we actually want that to come off. In fact, once we're done cooking it, we're actually gonna rub all of these extra bits off with a towel. You can see that since we slow cooked it, it's coming off quite easily. But for now, I'm gonna place the octopus back into our pot here, where I'll just let it swim a little bit longer and get a tad bit more tender. Then it'll be nice and soft for our sushi. While we wait for our octopus to rest a little bit longer in its hot tub, I wanna take a second to tell you about today's sponsor, Crowd Cow. Now, hear me out for a second, because I have an offer for you in a few moments. Crowd Cow is a marketplace for high quality meats. And yes, I've added water to the dry ice for dramatic effect. The way it works is as follows. You build your own box, searching between top-notch beef, pork, chicken, seafood, and more. Before I say anything else, I'll tell you this. My favorite thing about Crowd Cow is that every order is 100% carbon neutral. And you all know how much I care about the environment, so that's big news for me. The other nice thing is that there aren't any growth hormones or unnecessary antibiotics in the food. Just fresh, delicious ingredients. Since we're making octopus and I happen to have a tenderloin here, let's make some surf and turf. This will be the turf. On top of it being carbon neutral, all the boxes are 100% compostable and recyclable. Don't forget to roll your tenderloin all over the cutting board to really season it up. I actually ordered some beef from Crowd Cow at the start of quarantine. And given that it was my first time ordering beef online, I was super pleased with the quality. Now it's time to get a nice crust. Once it's got a nice crust, I'll flip it. And then we'll add in our butter, swish it around, and drop in our bay leaves. You gotta love all that butter. So here's the offer I got for you. Click my link crowdcow.com/nickd in the description box below to get $15 off your first order. You can also save an extra 5% off everything you put into your box when you become a member. Click my link and your membership is free. Talk about a perfect medium rare, huh? Thank you for sponsoring today's video, Crowd Cow. Now let's get back to that octopus, because I think he's probably getting a little too hot in that bath behind me. And finally, now that our octopus has had ample time to rest, I'll bring it over onto a little baking tray. You can see that the entire thing is tightened up a little bit. And that's great because it'll help us to remove some of that skin. Now this is gonna be extremely hot, but I'm quickly gonna rub all those purple bits off the octopus. Those parts are just a little bit too gooey and icky, and you really don't wanna eat those. But you can see how easily it cleans right off. Make sure you don't forget to give the tentacles some attention too. Now that our octopus is ready to cut, I'm gonna go ahead and do the honors. He's been decapitated. We're gonna come around each tentacle and cut those off, separating them now into individual tentacles. This will help us to go ahead and store it so we don't waste any, as well as let us choose one of those tentacles that's gonna give us the most beautiful nigiri. Now you can see here that I left a little bit of that purple color on some of these tentacles because I wanna have that beautiful look and color for our nigiri. I'm now gonna go ahead and cut into some of this octopus, separating off that top layer to be used for our nigiri rolls. Something like that should be perfect to rest atop some white rice. I'll do the same thing with several pieces of my octopus, gently cutting through each piece until we have a few pieces to work with. Because some of you may have watched this video just to learn how to cook an octopus until it's tender, know that instead of making sushi from this point forward, you could take this piece and fry it in some butter or oil, toss it right on the grill to get some nice dark char marks, or even cut it up and make a nice cold octopus salad. I've essentially brought you to that step here, and I'm now pivoting to make sushi. The pure reason I won't be charring it is because I want it to be very delicate and soft for each bite of nigiri. Now that we've gotten a few gorgeous pieces to use with our nigiri, we'll set these aside and deal with that wasabi. What we have here is a fresh piece of wasabi, and you're looking at the whole root right here. And there are a few reasons you probably haven't seen much wasabi in the past. First off, it's really expensive, but perhaps more importantly, when you go to grate it and turn it into a paste, the volatile compounds in here that give it that wasabi flavor break down within minutes. So you have to eat it right away. To start with this, I'm first gonna peel with a microplane down the edge of the wasabi to expose the actual part that we can eat. You'll see that as I go in further, I expose the root itself, and that's the part that I'm gonna grate against my microplane. Similar to horseradish, this is giving off some of those aromas and flavors, and it makes complete sense to me why horseradish and wasabi are easily interchangeable. Once I've peeled off some of that wasabi to expose the clean root, I'm gonna go ahead and grate it down my microplane to make a really fine paste. Now I do wanna mention that this isn't the traditional way to grate it. It's actually normally grated against a flat surface that has little bumps on it and creates sort of a paste on that board. But for now, a microplane will do just fine. And I wanna taste a little bit of that fresh wasabi flavor for the first time in my life. Definitely runs right through your nose like horseradish does, but if I'm being completely honest, it definitely tastes pretty similar to horseradish. It just has something slightly different about it that's actually quite refreshing. Something that almost kind of reminds me of cucumber. Once we grated this into a nice paste, we'll set this aside and quickly assemble the rest of our sushi. I've pre-cooked my rice here to the perfect sushi rice, but to get it nice and sticky, I'm gonna add in my solution of a little bit of sugar, mirin, oil, some rice wine vinegar, and some salt. I'll fluff up my sushi rice while mixing this in, which is what will allow me to stick the rice together into those nice little pillows under our octopus. Once our rice is complete, we're ready to assemble the nigiri. To start with our rice, I'll put a little bit into the palm of my hand and begin to make a nice little pocket. Now, I'm definitely no sushi sushi chef, but I do know that you don't want to press it too hard together to ruin any of the grains of rice. But I also know that it should be nice and tight and compact. Something that'll hold together well when you lift it up and eat it. After a little bit of shaping, this is what I got. And at this point, I'm gonna rub just a little bit of real wasabi right across the top of the rice there. Then gently lay over my octopus to make what I believe is a gorgeous looking nigiri. I'm gonna go ahead and paint some 3-year aged soy sauce over the top of each of our pieces of octopus. That's gonna give us a really unique, almost fermented-like flavor. And I'm actually okay with some of that soy sauce seeping into the rice because this is so special. After that, I'll come in with my torch and try to get the top of each piece of octopus just very lightly charred, more for the flavor rather than the texture. After this, my sushi is complete. Now we do want to start by saying that, as with a lot of the foods we make in this kitchen, I'm pretty proud of this nigiri. It's probably not the most traditional thing in the world, but it really does look cool. And I love using this part of the octopus to really know what you're eating. Now, as always, let's just take a bite and see how this is. Little wasabi. That's super unique in a really, really good way. I think what's really cool is, first of all, to my knowledge, I haven't had much fresh wasabi on sushi before. I certainly haven't used it myself in my kitchen here. But the other cool part of it is having octopus on something like sushi. That I've definitely never had before. And yeah, it's definitely a little bit chewier than what you'd get if you had tuna or salmon on there, which is so fatty and easily melts in your mouth. But I actually really enjoyed the concept of changing things up a little bit when it comes to sushi. So often I feel like a lot of the bites are so similar each and every time. And to have something that changes the entire time you're chewing on it and eating it is actually quite fun. The wasabi also does a really great job at sort of spreading out throughout your palate as you eat it. So you get that classic octopus flavor, but also some subtle hints of soy that are so delicate, given that that soy sauce is straight from Japan. Just take a look at the bottle if you don't believe me. And then of course that sweet, delicious sushi rice. This was definitely a fun one. And remember, next time you see octopus in the market, don't be scared. You can take this entire recipe, and then instead of making sushi out of it, toss it on the grill, toss it in a fry pan, whatever you want. Thank you so much for watching. Do not forget to subscribe and click that little notifications icon. I appreciate you all being here, and I can't wait to see what fish we get in here next time for the sushi series. I really wish I had another octopus joke to close things out, but I ought to go clean my kitchen.